enormous dimensions due to two main factors. The first one was the fact that the gymnasium was used by runners. Runners and athletes practiced throwing discus and javelin. It was a place where they exercised, and as you can easily imagine, runners needed a lot of space. The second factor had to do with the accommodation of the athletes, because these athletes obviously had to stay somewhere. So some of them were staying in the buildings of the gymnasium. But unfortunately only a quarter of the gymnasium survived. The rest has been washed away by the waters of the
Hang on to you.
Claveos, the small river of Olympia, the one we saw before, on our way down to Olympia. And now we enter the palestra of Olympia. That was the entrance in ancient Greece as well, so now we are entering like an ancient Greece. And we'll make a stop here so I will tell you a few things about this building.
Yeah. Colors.
Okay, so now we are inside the
Oh.
palestra of Olympia. The building was constructed almost 23 centuries ago. The palestra had a central open-air courtyard, you see it here, and it was surrounded by 4 rectangular buildings, one on each side. The palestra was mostly used by the athletes who practiced heavy combat sports. In ancient Greece, we have 3 of them: wrestling, boxing, and pagrati. There were 2 types of wrestling in ancient Greece: standing and ground. In standing wrestling, the winner was the one who threw his opponent 3 times on the ground. Ground wrestling started in the standing position, but continued on the ground till one of the opponents accepted his defeat. All holds were allowed, except the obvious, except grabbing the genitals. You can easily imagine why. Now, the aim of boxing was to force your opponent to accept his defeat by raising the index finger of one of his hands. This was the tap out, we could say, of the ancient Greek boxing. In ancient boxing, there were no limits of space or time. The athletes were not classified into groups according to their weight. There were no weight classes, no points, and no victory awarded on points. That said, kicks, blows to the genitals, and holds were illegal. The greatest boxer here at Olympia was probably Diagoras from the island of Rhodes. He didn't have the largest number of wins, but he was seen as a very noble athlete, a man of virtue who was respected a lot by the ancient Greeks. The greatest wrestler was probably Milo of Croto. Croto was a Greek colony in southern Italy. Milo was undefeated in the Olympic Games for almost 20 years. So he dominated the Olympics probably till the age of 40 years old. He eventually lost to one of his students. Yes. Now, there was also Pagratio. So So what was Pancratio? Pancratio was something like modern mixed martial arts. You know what that is? MMA, UFC, something like this. Pancratio was even more violent actually. There were only 3 rules. You were not allowed to kick your opponent in the genitals, you were not allowed to bite him, and to push your fingers into his eyes. That's basically it. Everything else was allowed. That's why Pancratio was street fighting actually, with very few rules. That's why the winners in Pancratio were seen as the strongest men of ancient Greece. The greatest, the most famous winner here at Olympia was probably Polydamas. Polydamas was undefeated here in Olympia. His reputation spread beyond the boundaries of Greece. In the Persian Empire, he was called by the great king of Persia, Darius, to fight the 3 strongest men of the Persian Empire. He defeated all 3 of them on the same day. So we're talking about some very strong men here at Olympia. I can show you how the palestra looked like. That's the building here, you can see. So you see this courtyard at the center.
Oh, wow.
And you can see that it was surrounded by these 4 rectangular buildings, porticos as they were called. Here we had 76 columns. In ancient Greece, you'll always find these 3 types of columns with minor differences. The oldest is the Doric, it's this one here. The Doric is very simple. That's a Doric column, it's the one with the rectangular edge in the upper part. And behind you can see Ionian columns in the second row. It's the one that's represented here at the center. There was also the Corinthian capital, but there are no Corinthian capitals here. Now behind each portico there were many different rooms. If you look behind the columns, you see the ruins of many different rooms. The most famous were probably the Eleothysio. The Eleothysio was the room in which they stored the olive oil with which they smeared their body to loosen up their muscles. And there was also the Conisterio, in which they sprinkled their body with dust. It was easier this way to grab your opponent in training. That's why the palestra also had 2 bathhouses, because obviously they wanted to clean themselves up after training. You know, they had this dust, olive oil, it would be very stinky actually. So obviously they needed somewhere to wash themselves. Some of these rooms were also used for workshops. The athletes who were here had to follow some workshops. You know, the ancient Greeks were always saying nous υγιής and soma υγιή, which means healthy mind, healthy body. They believed that an athlete should also be educated. He should be intelligent as well. Otherwise, you are just a big, strong, stupid man. That's how.
What's wrong with that?
That's how the Greeks saw
You
it.
still win.
Yeah, you still, when you get the privileges, yeah, that's true. Now the palestra and the gymnasium to the north were both made of limestone. So the material you see here is limestone. Limestone is a very popular form of sedimentary rock. You find it abundantly in bodies of water, on the surface of the earth as well. But here in Olympia it mostly comes from the river, from river Alpios. That's why if you look on these rocks, you'll find many seashells. They're quite visible because these rocks come from the river. Exercising. The athletes were exercising here. The athletic events were all taking place in the stadium, not in these buildings, not here. So now we will head towards the ruins of the great temple of Zeus, which was the most impressive monument of ancient Olympia. Okay, you can follow me, and of course if you want to ask me anything, feel free to do so.
Really? A stupid mask. Krova.
I will.
Well, if you stop calling them.
Oh, Jesus. I guess this is the closed code announcement. Closed code sheet. Now you'll hear me screaming. That's it.
The first one was the so-called Chiron. In ancient Greece, a Chiron was a sanctuary that was dedicated to the cult of an ancient Greek hero. These heroes were very popular. Their cult was introduced 30 centuries ago and it spread rapidly, probably due to the popularity of the two great epic poems of Homer, Olympia and Olympia. The protagonists of these poems are great heroes like Achilles, Odysseus, Agamemnon. So the Greek people wanted to be like them. They worshipped them. But the name of the hero who was worshipped here is not known. Next to the Chiron was the Theocoli, the seat of the Theocoli. These were the priests who are responsible for all religious activities at Olympia, because as I told you before, Olympia was mostly a sanctuary, a sacred place. The priests were the only people who stayed here permanently. They were also responsible for the maintenance of all these monuments. Okay, let's stop here because I wanted to show you this wall. This wall marks the entrance to the sacred area of Olympia. The sacred area is this way. It was called the Holy Altis and it was dedicated to Zeus himself. In this sacred area you'll find many temples, many sanctuaries and more than 200 altars. You know, the Greeks had thousands of gods, actually it's impossible to count them. Now in ancient Greece only men were allowed to enter this part of Olympia. Women and criminals were not allowed.
Oh,
no, it doesn't sound very
Which one are you?
nice. Women and criminals. So women.
So if you're
women and criminals.
Now if you look here to the left, you see some rocks on the ground. These rocks belong to a small sanctuary that was dedicated to Pele, great legendary hero. I told you before in the past the story of the chariot race between Pele and the nomads. Pele was worshipped here in Olympia. Some actually believe that the cult of Pele here predates that of Zeus. Now we'll stop. So you can see the ruins of the great temple of Zeus. It's used to be the most impressive monument of Olympia. Now, unfortunately, it's in a ruinous condition. And it were hot as well. The sun is very strong. Okay, so the temple of Zeus was built almost 25 centuries ago, and its construction lasted for 14 years, a long period of time. It was the largest ancient Greek temple that was located in the southern part of Greece, in the Peloponnese Peninsula. The temple was designed by a local architect. His name was Laibon, and it was designed by local Seli limestone that was quarried on the banks of river Alphios. Alphios is the long river of Olympia. It's this way, but as I told you before, it's not visible from the archaeological site. The tiles and the sculptures of the temple were made of pure white marble, and this means that it was a very expensive building. When you hear a roof made of marble, we're talking about the really expensive structure. The temple was actually quite big. Have any of you visited Athens, the capital? Have you seen the Parthenon, the temple on the Acropolis? The Parthenon is approximately 14 meters tall. In contrast, the temple of Zeus was 20 meters tall, so it was bigger than the Parthenon. Just this one column you see here is about 10 meters tall. It was twice as big. It was a huge structure. The entrance to the temple was to the east. This way, that's the east. The entrance of an ancient Greek temple is always to the east. Why? Probably yes. But in reality, that's a theory. We don't know for sure. But of course, okay, I guess it's what you expect. Now, the temple had 6 columns here on the short sides and 13 on the long sides. And I can show you now the upper part of an ancient Greek Doric temple. It's the same for all temples, with minor differences. So first we have the Doric columns. Then above the columns we have the epistyle, made of a single piece of stone. And then higher up, these rectangular blocks, the metopes, that were usually decorated. And here in the temple of Zeus, the 21 metopes were decorated with 21 golden shields. These shields were donated to the temple by Momius. Who was Momius? He was a Roman consul. He was the one who conquered Greece. You know, Greece was eventually conquered by the Romans. It became part of the Roman Empire for 600 years. It was actually a long period of time. But the Olympic Games continues here. And the Romans were also now allowed to participate. Of course they did, because they owned Greece. You can't say no to your master, obviously. It would be impossible. And it was actually a golden age. The Roman period for Greece was a golden period. That's because Greeks and Romans had similar culture and the same religion. Only the names of the gods were different. You know, Zeus here, Jupiter in Rome, Hera here, Juno in Rome, Athena, Minerva, but pretty much we're talking about the same gods and goddesses. I can show you now the form of the temple. That's from the Roman period. That's why you can see the 21 gilded shields of General Momius in the upper part. It's a quite impressive statue. It's really hard to imagine its form just by looking at these ruins, actually. Now the internal part of the temple was divided into 3 rooms. That's the kind of division you will usually see in all ancient Greek temples, again with minor differences. So first we have a small room in the entrance, the prodomos as it is called, a large room at the center. That's where we always find the cult statue of the god or the goddess, and a small room in the back that was usually used as the treasury of the temple, the storeroom for the offerings. In the central part of the temple of Zeus, there was the cult statue of the god. The statue was created 20 years after the temple. It was created by Phidias. Phidias is one of the greatest ancient Greek artists. Phidias was from Athens, a personal friend of Pericles, the founder of democracy. If you had a tour in the Acropolis in Athens, you might remember the golden statue of Athena. The statue had been created by the same artist. Phidias came here in Olympia in order to create the statue in a workshop that was built specifically for this purpose, and the ruins of this workshop are still preserved. The statue was about 12 meters tall, and it was made of gold and ivory, affixed to a central wooden core. It was considered to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was impressive. But unfortunately, does not survive. What happened? We know it was taken to Constantinople, that was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the one we call Byzantine today. That's Istanbul today in Turkey. It was exhibited there for a while. It might have been destroyed during a fire in the end of the 5th century. But it's just a speculation. The statue simply is not mentioned in the sources after this date, so it might have been smashed just to steal its gold. That's something that we can also speculate. I can show you the statue. You can see how it looked like. We know how it looked like because it has been described in length by Pausanias. Pausanias was an ancient Greek traveler. He visited Olympia in the Roman period, and he has written a book about the site and the surrounding area. And the statue is also represented on coins that were issued by the kingdom of Elis, the one who was responsible for organizing the Olympic Games. The Temple of Zeus itself was destroyed by these 2 earthquakes I told you before in the bus. So today we only see the ruins of the temple, but its architectural members are preserved. These all belong to the temple. The rock behind you, that's also part of the temple. So actually a full restoration is possible. We can do it. We can restore the temple to its original form. The problem is, of course, the cost. It's very high. And also the German Archaeological Institute, that's responsible for the site, does not want full restorations. The German Archaeological School believes that we should only restore a small part of the building and leaves the rest to the imagination. That's why it's not going to happen even if we find a lot of money. So that's it about the Temple of Zeus. Now we can make a stop in the restaurants. Some of you probably want them, okay? In order to find restaurants, we go this way.
Just wait. If you see one with horns, run.
You should be thinking happy thoughts, and only happiness will come to you.
It's just the word.
Sometimes you can see
Yeah.
them, sometimes no. Right, Sicily.
Hey, hey.
What could have been that big one? What's a base?
Yeah.
This rock is perfect if you want to see the Sicilies. Here they're quite visible, yeah. Wow, the distance here. Wow, it's amazing. Now in ancient Greece, a column could be monolithic, it could be made of a single piece of stone, Most of the times it was divided into smaller parts called the drums. At the center of each drum there is a hole in which the Greeks added metal clamps and lead. That's how these drums were joined together. And the columns were carved after they were placed in their final position, not before. Now if you look to the right, you see the ruins of many Roman porticos. The portico was a rectangular building. Behind this portico, there was the main entrance to ancient Olympia. So the main entrance in antiquity was from the south, not from the north. The ancient Greeks would not have entered Olympia the same way we do today. Here you can see an actual ancient Greek road, the so-called road of festivity. Okay. So, restrooms are at the end of this road. Here you see that yellow building. You can go now. Oh, I'll wait for you here. And when you're all back, you can continue our tour. Okay, thank you.
I suppose I better.
So, an Olympic wrestling.
Ruins of the Bullet-Turbo. So, the Bullet-Turbo was built almost 25 centuries ago.
Wow.
This building was the seat of the government of the Kingdom of Thales during the Olympic Games. But inside this building, there was always a statue of Zeus, another statue of Zeus. The athletes were taking their oars in front of this statue before the beginning of the Olympic Games. And the statue has been described as being very scary by the ancient Greeks. You know, it was carved with many texts, and these were all warnings to the athletes. You should respect the rules of the form of sacrilege. And you know, the ancient Greeks were afraid of their gods. The ancient Greek gods are not benevolent. They are not nice people. They are not nice gods. So you have to respect them.
So I bet a lot of golfers are afraid of Zeus.
Yes. This pedestal. This pedestal is now grey and white. It bore one of the most famous statues of ancient Greece. The statue of Nike by Paeonius. I have a photo of the statue here. It's this one. It was created 25 centuries ago by Paeonius, one of the greatest artists of ancient Greece. It's about 2 meters tall and it's made of white marble from the island of Paros in the Aegean Sea. Paros is next to Mykonos. Now Mykonos is more famous. In ancient Greece it was the opposite. No one cared about Mykonos. Paros was more famous. This was the best marble because of its great transparency and its pure bright white color. The statue represents Nike. Nike was the goddess of victory in ancient Greece, a very popular goddess. In Athens, outside the citadel of the Acropolis, there is a beautiful temple dedicated to Nike, and the statue is still preserved. It's exhibited in the Museum of Olympia, so those of you who go to the museum afterwards will be able to see. It was placed here, just outside the entrance of the Temple of Zeus. Something that would have made a great impression to the visitors, and it was seen as a masterpiece and a milestone in the history of ancient Greek art. It was a very, very beautiful statue. And you know, the shoe brand Nike is named after this goddess. Actually, the story of how Nike acquired its name is quite interesting. Nike was originally called the Blue Ribbon Sport. And the company was not doing well. They wanted to change the name to Nike Sport. Instead, that the CEO of Nike showing his green, fancy Greek garment. He woke up in the morning. Another famous statue here was the statue of Genio. Genio was the tyrant of Syracuse. Then found in the tomb was located in southern Italy. Greeks are found in many colonies in southern Italy. That's why this area was known as Magna Graecia, which means the Greater Greece. But unfortunately, the statue does not survive. And here you'll also see many pedestals with Greek writing. These pedestals bore statues that represented victorious athletes. We're talking about the best of the best. Only those were allowed to have their statues here at Olympia. And just imagine today a park that would be filled with statues of Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps, Muhammad Ali. We're talking about the best of the best of the ancient Greek athletes. This time of the year is perfect. You never see the colors so perfect. You made a fine choice coming to Greece in May. You know, it's true. May and October are probably the best months. So now, if you look right in front of us, you see the ruins of another building. This one was the Stoa of Echo. The Stoa of Echo was constructed 24 centuries ago. In ancient Greece, this building was known as Eptaiko Entikili. Eptaiko in Greek means 7 sounds. It was named this way because every time someone shouted, his voice was echoed 7 times. Tikili means multicolored. Why? Because there were many multicolored paintings on its walls. Its entrance was marked by many sculptures, many impressive sculptural deeds. The most beautiful was placed on 2 columns. One of these columns is this one, has been restored a few years ago. This sculptural group had been dedicated to the Stoa by the Pharaoh of Egypt, Ptolemy III, and his wife Queen Arsinoe. The Ptolemaic dynasty of ancient Egypt was of Greek descent. That's why we find a statue like this here. That's why the most famous queen of ancient Egypt, Cleopatra, was actually Greek and not Egyptian, because Cleopatra was a Ptolemy. I have a representation of the building. I have a better one in my cell phone if you find it. This is this one. That's how the Stoa of Echo looked like. It was a very, very impressive building, very beautiful one. And you can see the Ptolemaic monument represented. It's a very, very beautiful building.
It was. I can only imagine.
Is that a pumpkin fire?
Imagine how
I'm taking a video of everything.
Oh, I have no secret.
Doesn't really matter which way I point it. This way, that way.
When did they start?
Then I don't miss a thing, because I miss a lot in real life.
In the video.
Do you get the voice as well, or do you get sound, or is it just video?
Sound?
Sound.
Yeah, it's a video. You're on my video now.
Oh, dear.
I'll put it on YouTube and you can watch it.
Yes.
And in ancient Greece, a stoa was usually a commercial center, a place where you could buy things. But that was not the case with this building here. It was probably an art gallery with all these frescoes and statues. South of the stoa, this way at the end of the site, you see a building made of bricks. This was actually a Roman mansion. When you see bricks in the construction, this always means that the building was made by the Romans. The Greeks did not use bricks that much in construction. This mansion was financed by one of the most famous Roman emperors. Famous for the wrong reasons. Emperor Nero. They remember of him as a cruel and semi-paranoid ruler for his persecutions against the Christians. Nero was also responsible for the Great Fire that destroyed a part of the city of Rome. Nero also believed that he was a great athlete, so he decided to come here in Olympia in order to participate in the Olympic Games. So he came here, he participated in 6 contests in total. As you can imagine, he won all 6 of them. Yes, because the others were obviously afraid of him. Beating Nero would be a tough penalty, actually. This mansion was actually quite impressive with gardens, fountains, and swimming pool, but today it's in a ruinous condition. Okay, so now we can continue. Now we will enter the stadium. We finally see the place where the Olympic Games of Antiquity were taking place. Now behind the Stoa Peko, you see a wall. This wall marks the end of the sacred area of Olympia. Behind the wall was the stadium. So the stadium is located outside the sacred area of Olympia. And now if we look in front of us, we see this beautiful hill. In ancient Greece, this hill was dedicated to Cronus, Saturn, father of Zeus, and many other Olympian gods.
Phil?
Very violent god. Actually, Cronus was eating his own children.
On this military model.
Now we enter the stadium. Golden baptism. This is known since the war. Exceeding no arrogance, you should respect the rules of the Olympic Games. In ancient Greece, only the athletes were allowed to enter the stadium through this route. So now we are entering the stadium as an ancient Greek athlete. You could imagine the athletes coming out of this tunnel, finding themselves in the stadium, surrounded by 50,000 spectators. Screaming, making noise. It was fun. That's what to do. Everyone was supporting the athletes of these people. The ancient Greeks would be very harsh, like modern times. They would be like, Corinth is the best, Sparta sucks. Saying things like this.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, must have been funny.
Naked men. And then the woman. Yeah.
What did you say to the guy that was one of the rules of wrestling not to choke?
No, you could
You can choke all you want, just stay away from the gentleman.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's the point, yes.
Okay.
Eunuchs did very well
Why?
before that rule.
It's like rules in a knife fight. Okay.
I'll tell you everything. Now, the stadium was built 25 centuries ago. It's approximately 213 meters long and 39 meters wide. The distance between the starting and the finishing line is about 183 meters, and they were both marked by marble slabs on which the athletes placed their feet. The first line you see is the finishing line. The starting line is at the other end of the stadium. They were running from east to west. The spectators were sitting directly on the grass. There were no seats.
Oh.
The only seats in ancient Greece are the ones you see on the south side. You see some rocks there, and they were reserved for the judges, the people who were responsible for organizing the ancient Olympic Games. In ancient Greece, only men were allowed to enter the stadium. No women were allowed inside.
You might be a
They were
criminal.
evil.
If the women decided to break the law, the penalty was harsh. They should be executed for insulting Zeus.
Oh my God.
They should be cast from the heights of a mountain south of Olympia. Yes, I know it's not very nice.
Wow.
So there was one exception, the priestess of Demeter. She was the only woman who was allowed to be here. If you look on the north side, you see the altar of Demeter. That's where she was placed. Demeter was the goddess of agriculture. The stadium could accommodate up to 50,000 spectators, a lot of people. All the contests were taking place here, except equestrian events and chariot racing. The athletes were completely naked. Even the horsemen were also naked. I don't know how this. I mean, yeah,
Ow,
that's
ow,
what I'm
ow,
thinking.
ow.
It must be best hard for them. They were indeed naked. Now, these sports,
Especially if you pin
the
somebody.
three heavy combat sports,
Sadistical
I told you
bastards.
before, but we also had foot races, like stadium, in which the athletes should cover this distance just once, 183 meters. They were running in a straight line, not around the stadium as we do today. We also had dolijos, a long distance race, in which the athletes should cover this distance 24 times back and forth. 4,800 meters, yeah, that would be hard. Hoplite racing, in which they were running wearing a helmet and holding a shield,
And no clothes on.
and no clothes, and the ancient Greek shields.
That makes you faster.
Should have had a different shield. Too.
Everybody's a streaker.
Yes, exactly. We also had discus and javelin. The rules were pretty much similar to what we have today. And pentathlon. Pentathlon was a combination of 5 sports: wrestling, discus, javelin, running, and long jump. Equestrian events
No.
and chariot racing were taking place in the hippodrome. The hippodrome was this way behind the trees. It was huge, 850 meters long, 350 meters wide. Up to 10 chariots could participate at the same time. And chariot racing was the most popular sport of the ancient Olympics. Unfortunately, there's nothing to see. The hippodrome has been completely washed away by the waters of River Alphios.
You
the
should have
big
seen
river.
it.
The river
Brilliant.
unfortunately completely destroyed the hippodrome. There's nothing to see. And it's really missing because it was the most impressive and the most popular sport of the ancient Olympics.
You get stray javelins and stuff like that. They have stray javelins and stuff. Javelins.
Javelin the had, yes, it was part of the calendar. Now, finally, the Stadium of Olympia was also used in the Olympic Games of 2004, the Games in Athens. We had the finals of an Olympic event here after 1,600 years. It was really impressive. That event was shot put, which is part of the athletics group of sports. We had competitions for both men and women. The sad thing is that both winners in both divisions were caught for doping. They were both stripped of their medals. Yes, I know.
That's right.
They were both from East Europe. I don't remember their countries.
How do you think I got this way? Big old
Yes, here in the
steroids.
stadium.
And then they blew it.
After the disqualification, men's medal went to this man. He's Adam Nelson from the United States. That's a photo here in the Stadium of Olympia during the Olympic Games of 2004 in Athens.
He's the second place guy. He's the guy who got it.
And I can show you the female winner. I have her in my cell phone.
I suppose she had to run naked and wear a helmet.
Fancies her, yeah.
She's quite big actually.
I'll bet.
She's this big, strong girl from Cuba. She was the real winner of.
Oh, I wouldn't mess with her.
No, me too.
She is.
God didn't make that.
Really, she's really big.
That was chemically enhanced.
Yeah, you have to be very big to win.
Gotta be on muscle.
Yes.
Solid. Yeah.
Okay, now I'll give you 5 minutes if you want to take some photos here. I know it's very hot, but maybe some of you want to take photos. And I'll call you. I'll call you through the microphone right now.
I'll take a photo of the shade for me.
What was
You
the
see.
length of the stadium? The length?
I can hear, sorry.
The length of the stadium.
The length, 213 meters, the total length.
213 meters.
Now do that 24 times. Get
Yeah,
down and
could you imagine?
do it.
There's a very pale patch and it changes color distinctly. In the distance, yeah, there's different types of rock.
I think I'll go find some shade.
And like it'll
You can catch up later. Oh, I wonder are we going back that way?
Sure, I mean, I have to ask you. No one has ever asked me this.
I'll never make it that way.
The first one to be that was a boxer. The first one who was caught. You never know. His name was Eupolos. He bribed all his 3 opponents. That's how he was declared the winner at Olympia. But athletes could be penalized for many different things. A boxer called Sarabion was expelled from the game. So the judges got really mad. They expelled him from the games because they were volunteers. No one was forcing them to be here. The judges were like, "Why you don't want to fight? Why are you here? I mean, just go home." But before you first dedicate the statue to Zeus, okay? Because you insulted him by being here. That was the point of this wall. Stored the ex-voters of the cities that built it. And here we see a very small temple that was dedicated to Octavian was the founder of the Roman Empire, one of the smartest politicians of the ancient world. He was the one who prevailed against the blood of the Roman Empire. Roman god, famous for her jealousy. She was always a jealous woman. Why? Well, she had her reasons actually. Zeus was constantly cheating on her. Yes, she was right. It's here on the altar of Hera that they light the Olympic torch. You have all probably seen these images on TV before any modern Olympic event. So it takes place here, the altar of Hera. The Olympic torch.
They look like homecoming
Rays of the
queens.
sun shining through a magnifying glass. After a heat, it's a liver every single day. The liver was recreated afterwards because Prometheus was immortal. It's actually seen as one of the worst punishments in the Greek mythology. Zeus god, poor Prometheus was eventually set free by Hercules, the great hero, so his martyrdom ended. So the Olympic torch was first lit in Amsterdam in 1924, while the first great journey of the Olympic torch took place in the Olympic Games of Berlin in 1936. The great journey of the Olympic torch is a symbol of the great journey of the Spondophori. They light the torch here before the summer and the winter Olympics. It's always here, on this spot. Behind the altar of Hera, you see the ruins of the Nympheo. The Nympheo is a Roman building. You see a lot of bricks. So what I told you before, when you see a lot of bricks, that's Roman. So this Roman building was erected in the 2nd century after Christ. It was financed by Herodotus Atticus, a very wealthy merchant of this period, and it was dedicated to the nymphs. The nymphs were goddesses famous for their beauty. This building was mostly used for the water supply of Olympia. Olympia was supplied with water from the many hills that surround the area. There were many natural springs of water there. Water reached this building, and from here clay boats were then carrying water to all the other buildings here at Olympia. It was a beautiful building. It was a two-storied semicircular structure, and it was dedicated with many beautiful Roman statues that represented Roman emperors and members of Herodotus' family. At the center there was also a beautiful marble pool, a symbol of the element of water. If you go to the museum, there is a gallery that's dedicated entirely to this building. You see plenty of its statues there. So Olympia was supplied with water from the hills, not from the two rivers. You can't drink the water from the two rivers of Olympia. Okay, unless someone has a death wish, it's very bad, the water. Only the water of the spring. Okay, we can continue. We go now straight forward to the room in the entrance, the Prodromos, and then at the center, a large rectangular room, a cellar. This is where you will find always the statue of the god or the goddess. There was a statue of Hera here. The head of the statue is preserved, and it's exhibited in the Museum of Olympia. The temple is surrounded by many Doric columns. You see them there, here. These columns were originally made of timber, but they were gradually replaced by the stone columns you see today. This process of replacement lasted for almost 1,000 years, a long period of time. And here you see to the left the last room of the building. This room was usually used as the treasury, the place where they were keeping all the offerings to the god or the goddess. Now, according to the ancient Greek writers, inside inside this temple there were some famous objects, like the disc of Ephesus that was inscribed with a text that mentioned the Sacred Cruise, or a small table made of gold and ivory. Athletes were receiving their awards. They were crowned with these olive wreaths, and they were showered with flowers as the spectators were singing, "Well done, victorious athlete." We stopped here just to show you these openings on the columns. I'll tell you the story on our way back to the port of Katakolo. Who were these women and why do we have these portraits here?
Going down. Shade.
Shade, yes. No.
Thank you. God of shade.
There should be a god of shade.
He's not mean enough.
So I can show you the form of the temple of Hera. That's the temple. You can see it here. That's how it looks like. It's a beautiful temple, older than the temple of Zeus. Now it was inside the temple of Hera where the archaeologists found this statue. A statue of Hermes holding the infant Dionysus. The statue was created by Praxiteles, widely considered to be the greatest artist of ancient Greece. The statue was created 24 centuries ago. We see Hermes, the messenger of the gods, holding the infant Dionysus. Dionysus was the god of wine. And the statue is made of pure white marble from the island of Paros. In many museums all over the world, we will see statues that were created by Praxiteles, but these are all copies. That's the only authentic statue that has been created by the sculptor himself. The other ones are all Roman copies. The only work of Praxiteles that was created by him that still survives is this one. And it's again exhibited in the Museum of Ancient Olympia. It's the central piece of the collection. Finally, before we leave the site, I just wanted to show you this building, this circular building behind you, the so-called Philippion. This building was erected 24 centuries ago. It was financed by the great king of Macedonia, Philip II. It's the period in which Macedonia became the dominant power in Greece. So this monument was mostly a monument of propaganda. Why did Philip decide to build this one? It was a way for the Macedonians to show their strength. It was a way for them to say, you know, we are here, this is one of the most sacred sites of Greece. We are making our monuments, so now we are the most powerful state in Greece. We are running the show. That's the point of the existence of this monument here. We call it Philippion, but in reality it was completed by the son and successor of Philip II. He is the greatest king of ancient Greece, Alexander the Great. He is the man who completed this monument, but Alexander has never been here at Olympia. His father Philip was here. Philip participated in chariot racing, where he was declared the winner. And we do have Macedonian coins from this period that show Philip and his winning chariot. I can show you this building that's a good replica of the Philippion. It was this beautiful circular monument, and inside there were 5 beautiful statues made of gold and ivory that represented Philip, his wife Alexander the Great, and Alexander's grandparents. Unfortunately, they do not survive. Every time you listen about a golden statue, you don't have to ask. They don't exist. They have all been smashed. Already in antiquity, the only way we can have a golden statue from ancient Greece or Rome that's still intact is if we find it in a tomb that has already been forgotten in antiquity. That's the only way. Otherwise, they are all gone. We know they existed only from the sources. That's it. Unfortunately. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the tour here in the archaeological site. Okay, now you have this free time. You have plenty of time. We leave at 4 o'clock, so you have like 1 hour and 15 minutes now.
Hey, how you doing?
have to watch out for each other. My orthopod, I
Oh,
he said as soon as you get the
an Indian guy so different from us.
And the second one, the more recent one, was put in by a robot. Yeah. And I got through like the bionic woman, but when I go uphill, my knees, my legs. Yeah, I think they're both fake. No, just my hip.
Oh well.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I don't want to ride a horse.
well, no.
I don't want to have my fillings come out in a carriage. But it looks cool.
Have your fillings come out of that?
Well, my dad was a dentist. Sometimes I think like that. I shouldn't have any fillings, but I do.
Well, it's not going to be a rough ride in the carriage.